After a serious illness, 65-year-old Finshin began to feel sorry for his first love. He wants to divorce me so that his first love can inherit his estate, but his health was running out and he passed away before we could get our divorce. I inherited all our property and became a rich old lady. When I learned that Finshin was terminally ill, I sat alone in the hospital corridor digesting the sadness on my own. We have been together for more than 40 years, and the thought that he is about to leave this world makes me so sad that I can hardly breathe. When I calmed down and stepped into the ward again, I heard Finshin's weak but excited voice. Theolan, I will convince Nova to divorce me. After she and I get the divorce certificate, I will get the marriage certificate with you. This way, my money can be left to you, so that you can spend a peaceful old age. My hand on the door handle suddenly shrank, and my body staggered for a moment before I steadied myself. Then I felt a tightness in my chest and couldn't breathe. I was overwhelmed by a great deal of anger and grief. Finshin, since I was 20 years old, I have been with him through thick and thin and have been through a lot of hardships along the way. As a result, even when he was old and dying, he was still scheming to be with his first love Theolan and making plans for her old age. Then what are the results of my efforts over the past 40 years? Am I stupid? Am I unlucky? I retreated to the doctor's office and told him my decision. The doctor nodded in understanding. It's okay for you to be discharged from the hospital. There is no need for treatment. You can spend the rest of your time with your family. For the patient's mood, I still suggest that you keep your condition secret. I completed the discharge procedures for Finshin. 65-year-old Finshin still has a straight back. Although his eyebrows and eyes are no longer as handsome as when he was young, they appear more profound due to the baptism of time. At this moment these eyes were looking at me with a hint of dissatisfaction. He thought I was too close to him. Finshin didn't like walking side by side with me when he was young. The same is true now. He disliked that I was ugly and short and that I was not a good match for him who was tall and had long legs. We always travel one after the other. He has long legs and takes big steps, always leaving me who has short legs far behind. For so many years I have been following his indifferent back. Now I'm tired. I jogged in front of him and got into the bus that had just stopped. Even before the bus started, the frail Finshin had not yet reached the bus stop. I ignored the fact that he was running out of breath and his face turned red due to embarrassment and sat down with peace of mind, enjoying the air conditioning in the car. I returned home and immediately fell into a good sleep. Finshin in the hospital these days, taking care of him day and night, and I am extremely exhausted. I was awakened by a knock on the door. Theolan supported Finshin and stood at the door. Theolan is the same age as me. She is tall and has an elegant temperament that stands out among her peers because she has been practicing dancing for many years. In order to make it easier to work, I always wore the gray coat that old ladies usually wear. At this moment Theolan was looking at me with dissatisfaction. Nova, how could you just abandon Qingfeng in the middle of the road? Luckily I passed by there and called a taxi for him. I looked at the well-matched couple in front of me and spread my hands. Doesn't this create opportunities for you? My words made Theolan and Finshin look a little uncomfortable. Finshin finally looked up at me with cold anger in his eyes. You can think whatever you want. After that he took Theolan into the study and slammed the door. This scene has been repeated so many times in my marriage that I can't remember anymore. Finshin was like this when he was young. Theolan to the study in front of me and shut me out. He also said confidently, Nova, you don't understand art. Theolan and I were just talking about work. Finshin is a well-known painter and Theolan is a dance teacher. They always have endless topics to talk about art. But in a private space with a man and a woman alone, how can one not have wild thoughts? I have quarreled, made a scene, and even gone hysterical. Finshin always looked down at me with a cold voice. Forget it. Think whatever you want. There is nothing innocent between Theolan and I. It's just that the lustful see the lustful. I didn't understand what these flowery words meant. I just heard them talking loudly in the room and occasional laughter. I could only stare at the clock and count the time. I hope this torture of mine will end soon. Now I turned a deaf ear to the laughter and chatter inside and went to the kitchen. Today my daughter, who married and moved to another city, suddenly said she wanted to come home for dinner. My daughter arrived, greeted me, and then went to knock on Finshin's study door. Through the door Finshin's voice was unhappy. Nova, we are already this old. What can we do? You really have a dirty mind. My daughter looked back at me awkwardly, then whispered, Dad, Teacher Lin. Smee. There was silence inside the door for a moment and then it opened. The daughter came forward to greet Finshun, and then hugged Theoelen, who used to be her dance teacher. Since Theoelen and Finshun were lovers before I thought about changing her teacher. Finshun scolded me, saying that I was jealous and had a heart smaller than a needle tip. My daughter also said that she would not continue to learn the dance she loves most if she changed teachers. Later I compromised. I ordered 2 bowls of dumplings which had a light hint of oil floating on them. Finshun glanced at the table, frowned slightly, and then looked at me with contempt. What I mean is that I deliberately used food to disgust Theoelen because of his arrival. Finshun particularly hates pasta, especially dumplings. Now I suddenly understand that I used to be the daughter of a dumpling shop owner, and he hated me because of my family. I brought 2 sets of bowls and chopsticks and asked my daughter to sit down and eat. My daughter looked at me with a complicated expression and stood motionless beside Finshun and Theoelen as if they were a real family of 3. Mom, I came here today to tell you something. Dad is in poor health and might pass away any day. You might as well let him go and let him live a comfortable life in his later years. The dishes and chopsticks in my hands fell onto the table with a clatter. I thought Finshun would ask me for a divorce, but I didn't know he would do it through my daughter. My marriage to Finshun was like that of most people in that era. It was arranged by a matchmaker and our parents agreed to it as long as they liked each other. Finshun is well educated and handsome, but his family is poor and he has many brothers, so he has never been able to get married. Even Theoelen, who was in a free love relationship, had to marry someone else because his parents prevented him from doing so. Now it was my turn, as I had not received much education and was not very good looking. I thought that I was hardworking and capable, and he didn't like me that much, so it was enough for him to live a good life with me. Later we had a daughter, and Finshun's attitude towards me gradually became gentler. I thought we would live an ordinary life. Seeing my reaction, my daughter thought I disagreed and her tone became more impatient. Mom, you and Dad have been torturing each other these years. Why don't you just part ways in peace? I suppressed my disappointment with my daughter, picked up the bowl and chopsticks again, put a dumpling in my mouth and said something incoherently. Good. The 3 people didn't seem to hear my answer clearly. My daughter was a little angry and snatched my bowl. Mom, you and Dad have been arguing for your whole life. Why don't you just separate now? Remember when you had a fight? You almost set the house on fire. I looked at my daughter with an excited face and told her, that time, your father wanted to give your place in the company to your cousin, so I threatened to burn down the house, and your father gave up. Otherwise, you would still be working overtime in the workshop tightening screws. The daughter's face turned red and she stopped talking awkwardly. Finshun coughed lightly to hide his embarrassment, then his face darkened again. Nova, no matter what, I want to divorce you. If you don't want to, I will move out first. You can't keep me. I waved my hand to interrupt him. I agreed to divorce. Finshun looked at me in disbelief for a moment, because in his eyes it was almost impossible for me to agree to leave him. He and I were once happy, at least that's what I thought. Finshun reached middle age. He had many health problems, big and small. I took good care of him and his family, cooked his favorite meals, and accompanied him to the hospital. One time I was so tired from taking care of him and his father, who were both in the hospital, that I fainted from hypoglycemia. He once assured me with red eyes, Nova, I am lucky to have you in my life. At that time I also blushed at the sudden love words. Ignoring the different expressions of the 3 people in front of me, I said calmly, I've gotten used to this kind of life over the years. Why don't we postpone the divorce for a month? I need some time to get used to it. I turned my back and wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of my eyes. Finshun looked at me, with a hint of guilt in his cloudy eyes. His lips moved, and after a long time he sighed, and said in a low voice, Nova, I am sorry. Qingfeng, you haven't finished talking about the creation you just told me about. Theoelen interrupted Finshun at the right time, and the 2 went into the study together again. My daughter sat next to me unhappily. Mom, I wish you were as elegant as Aunt Lin. Then Dad wouldn't dislike you. I glanced at the daughter I had raised and asked, do you really want me to divorce your father? The daughter was playing with her phone, saying with disdain, a forced melon is not sweet. Dad and Aunt Lin are more suitable. They both know art, but you only know the daily necessities of life. Indeed, Finshun is handsome and elegant, and Theoelen is beautiful and graceful. Whenever the 2 of them stood together, I would shrink back, lower my head, and stay away from them. I smiled and said, I also think they are more suitable, so I decided to let them go free. My daughter breathed a sigh of relief when she heard me continue. Your father knows that his health is not good and he may die at any time. So he wants to divorce me and marry your Aunt Lynn, so that his property can be legitimately inherited by your Aunt Lynn. I think you would also like to see your Aunt Lynn live a more prosperous life in her old age. After all, you like her so much. I am not trying to sow discord between the father and daughter. I heard these words in the hospital today. I still remember Finch's affectionate voice. Theo, I didn't have the chance to take care of you when we were young, but when I get divorced, at least I can leave you some money so that you won't be alone. The daughter's hand, which was playing with her mobile phone, suddenly stopped and the smile on her face disappeared. She glared at me resentfully and said, "Mom, why didn't you tell me earlier? I am the one who should inherit your estate." I didn't say anything and continued eating. Today's dumplings are especially delicious. There was a loud sound of something being thrown in the study and my daughter's voice was very sharp. "You just think that since Mom has taken care of grandparents until they passed away, and now you won't live long, you don't need her anymore, so you just kick her out. Theo Elian really liked you. Why didn't she marry you when she was young? Why didn't she marry you when you were poor? But she waited until her husband died and was kicked out by her son before she came to you. You are an ungrateful old spare tire." I swallowed the meat filling in my mouth and my mouth tasted slightly bitter. The daughter has already entered into marriage, so how could she not understand her father's calculations? She just pretends to be ignorant when her interests are not infringed. Pa! The sound of a slap hitting the face was mixed with Finch's angry roar. "Shut up. You don't have to meddle in my affairs." The daughter burst into tears covering her face and left a message, "If you dare to divorce Mom, you are not my dad," and then ran away. Theo Elian also walked out of the study. Her steps were a little messy, her hair was scattered, and her usually calm face was a little flustered. She who always held her head high in front of me rarely ran away. Finchen also walked out of the study, his face flushed with a sickly red because of anger. "Nova, I know you are hypocritical. You just can't leave me, and you even instigated my daughter to cause trouble." I didn't even look at him. "Don't worry. I promise I will divorce you in a month." After I said that, I went downstairs with my bag. By the way, I have always been an old lady with nimble hands and feet. Without having to follow Finchun or carry things for him, I found the large housekeeping company according to the recruitment address on the internet. I really like to organize and keep the house tidy, and I once thought about working for a housekeeping company, but Finchun was very dissatisfied. "If you go out to work as a nanny, how will others see me? Please don't embarrass me." Okay, besides, there are a lot of things to do at home. If you are not at home, who will do it? I can only give up this idea. On the 5th day of my trip, Finchun called me. I just got through and the other party hung up. Then I called again and they hung up again. I simply blocked him. Human growth seems to happen in an instant. The education philosophy I received since childhood is men are the sky and nothing can be done without them. For more than 40 years I have been following Finchun. Take care of his food, clothing, housing and transportation materially. Spiritually it is based on his joys, sorrows, anger and happiness. He is happy, I am happy. He is sad, I am sad. I seem to be just a shadow behind him. Without him as the subject, I seem to have no need to exist. Now my shadow can finally break away from the main body, stand upright and do whatever I want. After my Tendi training was over, Finchun's elder brother called me. "Sister-in-law, Qingfeng is not feeling well right now. Can you come back and take care of him?" I was surprised. "Isn't Theo on with him?" There was silence for a moment on the other end of the phone, followed by a violent cough. Finchun's voice was obviously much weaker, but every word he spoke was cold. "Forget it. Don't beg her. Theo will be here soon. You're still talking about her. How can you cook for patients and order takeout every day?" I hung up the phone. I was busy. The room I clean is the brightest and the meals I cook are the most delicious. The training manager is a young girl. She gave me a thumbs up, which made me really embarrassed. She said, "Some people look down on people who do housework, but they maintain the basic operation of life. The food is not cooked by itself, and the garbage does not go to the trash can by itself, because housework is not circulated in the market and does not produce goods needed by society. It has always been belittled. Auntie, you can do it well. It's great." Previously insignificant in the eyes of Finchun and my daughter were recognized here for the first time. I was so excited that I almost cried. A few days later I received another call from my daughter. She cried very sadly. "Mom, Dad is gone." I held the phone in my hand, dazed for a moment. Although this was expected, The doctor said Finchen can live for about another month, and if he is well taken care of he can live for a while longer. Clearly he was not being taken care of. I rushed home to take care of his funeral, and our property Finchen made before his death was of a red tulip swaying in the wind. There are a few small words next to it. A belated confession. This was the last work he completed before his death. I glanced at it and let Finchen's former student sell it. Sell it. Any price is fine. Suddenly an angry voice rang in my ears. Nova, how dare you sell my paintings so casually? I remained calm and pretended not to hear. As soon as I entered the study I saw Finchen floating in the air. I was really startled at first and I reached out my hand, but it went right through his body while no one else in the room seemed to notice. From then on I understood that this was the soul of Finchen, but only I could see him and hear what he said. I heard from the old people that if the deceased still has obsessions in his heart, his soul will remain in the world temporarily. I pretended not to notice him and went about packing up my things in the study. The divorce agreement he had drafted was placed in the drawer of his study. The house belongs to him and I get 30 of the savings and he gets 70. As if seeing the dissatisfaction on my face, Finchen coughed lightly and explained, I'm not after money. I just can't let go of Theo. You can move in with your daughter. But Theo was kicked out by her ex-husband's son, and she has nowhere to go, so I want to give her the house. Also, you're used to being frugal, so this money is enough for you, and Theo has never suffered hardship, so her living expenses are higher, so don't argue with her. A sarcastic smile appeared on the corner of my mouth, which really proved the saying, as long as you can endure hardship, there will be endless hardship. In the past Finchen was obsessed with painting, but no one was interested in his paintings and he couldn't even make back the cost of paper and pens. There are elders at the top of the family and younger ones at the bottom. It was me who went to the dock to carry rice. A 40-kilogram bag of rice only cost a few cents. I mixed in with a group of men and earned money by selling my labor. This way the money for daily meals will be available. Later, I went to work in a factory as a female worker, breathing a lot of dust. I worked there for 10 years and was forced to resign only when nodules developed in my lungs. Finchen's paintings only started to be sold in recent years. To be precise, he was only able to earn some income for his family when he reached middle age. I tore up the divorce agreement in front of Finchen and said to myself, I'm so glad you left early so that no one would come to share my property. Finchen was stunned, then became furious. Nova, you did this on purpose. You are so vicious. Finchen, who is always calm and composed, rarely shows such a fierce expression. He reached out his hand to push me, but his hand hit nothing. He looked at his hands dejectedly, as if realizing that he was already dead. His words and actions had no effect on me at all. Finchen's funeral. The daughter just pretended to cry for a while. She was still resentful of the slap her father gave her. That was the first time that the father and daughter had a quarrel. In the past, I was always the mediator. Finchen was a son-in-law. I was responsible for my daughter's studies since she was young. Although I was not well educated, I would stay up late with her to finish all her homework. But Shunqing would rather focus on his nephew. When my daughter was feeling lost, I was the one who kept telling her, Dad is too busy with work to spend time with you. Finchen didn't attach importance to his daughter's studies, but occasionally when I was strict with her, he would come forward and say a few good words for her. Then his daughter felt that her father was the one who truly loved her. Later, Finchen became famous for his paintings, and his daughter admired her father even more. She became even more dismissive of me, a mother who only cared about the family. Now I see clearly that my daughter is a cold person at heart, and the slap from Finchen also interrupted her childish affection. Theo came in hesitantly and her daughter rushed up and slapped her. Little San, who asked you to come here to be an eyesore? You're the one who killed my dad. I asked you to make some soup, but you ordered takeout for him. My poor dad wanted to drink a sip of the chicken soup my mom made before he died. Finchen, who was following behind me, turned his head and snorted coldly. Nova, don't listen to her nonsense. Who wants to eat the food you cook? I heard from my uncle that Finchen could have held on for a few more days, but the soup that Theo brought was a bit spicy. Finchen choked after taking a sip, coughed a few times, and died before he could catch his breath. Finchen angrily scolded his daughter. Your Aunt Lynn didn't do it on purpose. She never went into the kitchen. Of course my daughter couldn't hear it. Theo ignored the glares from everyone, rushed directly in front of me, and looked at me with a bit of flattery. Nova, did Qingfeng leave a suicide note or something? I looked at her coldly. No. Finshen passed away suddenly. Maybe I took too good care of him, and he always thought that his body would be able to recover again. So he did not leave a suicide note to specify the division of property. Theo-Ellen immediately held back the tears in her eyes and someone handed her incense. Since you are a good friend of the deceased, please send him off with a breeze. Theo-Ellen threw away the incense and left without looking back, without even looking at Finshen's photo. The daughter sneered. Knowing that she didn't get any benefit, she turned her back on me immediately. Finshen didn't care and shouted at Theo-Ellen's back. Theo-Ellen, I know you are very sad and unwilling to accept the fact that I am gone. Alas, you must take good care of yourself. There will be no one to talk about poetry and painting with you in the future. Finshen looked at me with disdain. Nova, why am I stuck with you? I also want to know this question. If possible, I hope he will pester Theo-Ellen and nag him all day long. It's very annoying. Finshen waved his arms at me angrily, but I pretended not to see it and asked everyone to go eat together. I was tired and hungry, gnawing on a bone with big mouthfuls making quite a noise. Finshen's eyes immediately showed some disgust. He has always disliked me because I always eat and do things in a hurry, which he calls too rude. In the early years I had to take care of his paralyzed mother and young daughter. Sometimes as soon as I sat down to eat, his mother would poop her pants and his daughter would cry loudly, so I developed the habit of eating quickly. Because there are a lot of housework waiting for me, I have to race against time. Where was Finshen at that time? He locked himself in his room to create. He just wants to work. I have to work, take care of my daughter, take care of his mother, and do the laundry and cooking. Nova, how can you eat this? Wouldn't you be sad if I died? Finshen said indignantly. It is really disheartening to see that a person has passed away, and his relatives do not show any sadness. So I decided to take him to see someone who was truly sad for him. After the funeral I went to the dance hall. Theo-Ellen, wearing a tight cheongsam, is dancing ballroom dance with a middle-aged man. The two of them moved to the beat of the dance, and the man slowly held Theo-Ellen in his arms. The posture was indeed somewhat ambiguous. I saw Finshen with a stern expression on his face staring at them closely. His eyes seemed to be on fire. But after a moment he calmed down again. Theo-Ellen must be very sad. My sudden death is such a big blow to her. She needs to relax. Indeed, I also need to relax. I glanced at my phone and then walked towards a man who waved at me at the bar. I sat opposite the man. His name was Xielin. He was about the same age as me, but because he exercised regularly, he looked younger than his actual age. I was wearing a nice fitted dress and raised my glass to him politely. Finshen looked at me, then at him. Nova, who is he? As he spoke he began to look me in the eye with a look of surprise. Why did you start wearing skirts, and matching them with small-heeled leather shoes? And why did you dye your hair? I still pretended not to hear, and extended an invitation to Xialing. Want to dance together? I'm just a newbie. Xialing made a very gentlemanly pleased gesture. I took his hand and slowly walked towards the dance floor. Finshen stamped his feet and shouted, pointing at me always with his self-possession. Nova, you are not a faithful woman. You are so close to men. Nova, when did you learn to dance? You are just too idle, and even housework can't keep you busy. I ignored his words and smiled at Xielin. I understand what you said. I will take good care of your mother. Xielin breathed a sigh of relief. He was my first client in the housekeeping company. He was going abroad to accompany his children and hoped that I could take care of his elderly mother. He has very high requirements, so the corresponding salary will not be low. The music started dispelling Finshen's chatter. For the past 40 years Finshen has been watching my anger and unwillingness with cold eyes. It was as if I was a clown making trouble unreasonably. Now the roles seem to have been reversed. I wonder how he feels. After seeing Xialing off, I passed by a private room and heard a quarrel coming from inside. Through the crack in the door I saw Theo-Ellen being pushed to the ground by her dance partner. Finshen immediately became anxious and hurried over there, but I didn't move and he couldn't get close to Theo-Ellen. He immediately yelled at me. Nova, you just watched Theo-Ellen being bullied. When has she ever been wronged like this? I stopped at the door of the box pretending to look at the mural on the wall. Finshen seized the opportunity and immediately rushed into the box floating beside Theo-Ellen with an anxious look on his face. The man looked angry and said, "How dare you, a fickle woman like you, flirt with me?" Theo-Ellen held the man's trouser legs and begged bitterly. I accompanied Laoshin just to make some money from there. but he turned out to be a short-lived ghost and didn't get any benefits. You are the only one in my heart. That old man smells like medicine, and I feel sick every time I get close to him." Fin-shan's face faded instantly and he stood there in a daze until the two men reconciled. Only then did he seem to come to his senses. Theo-Ellen leaned in the man's arms. "If I had known he would die so soon, I would have coaxed him into writing a suicide note or something. At least I could have gotten some money." The man's voice was filled with displeasure. "That's why you told me to wait for your good news, saying that you will have a big house to sell for some money soon." Yeah, I really hate his hypocritical attitude. He said he couldn't give me anything unless we were divorced, and that he wanted to be worthy of his first wife. How funny. If he really wanted to be worthy of his first wife, he would kick her out when he got old. I told him I couldn't cook, and he foolishly believed me. He endured the discomfort and ate several meals of takeout I ordered. He was afraid of embarrassing me, so he finished all the takeout and finally vomited it secretly. The man burst into laughter. "It's not that the fool has grown old. It's that he was a big fool from the beginning." Fin-shan's face turned paler and paler. He had always been arrogant and had never seen such a scene before. Theo-Ellen shook his head. "Alas, hypocrite. Such a mean person. It's unlucky to be with him. I don't like those paintings and pins, but I have to cater to his preferences and pretend to like listening to his talk. It's a pity that I'm not young anymore. Except for him who remembers the friendship we had when we were young. No one is willing to be deceived by me." Later a group of people broke into the box and beat and kicked the two men. "You are still restless even when you are old, and you are always being someone's mistress." "Bah, you are a mistress. When you are old, you seduce other people's husbands. Do you have any shame?" It seems that the person coming is the man's wife. The man argued, "We are talking about art, and you don't understand. Your art is bullshit. You can't discuss it anywhere. Why do you have to be alone together? Is it your art that cannot be shown to the public?" I looked at Fin-shan with a sneer. Fin-shan hurriedly explained, "Our art is different." He suddenly paused while speaking. His strong back completely collapsed. His head lowered, and no one knew what he was thinking. Then there was no sound behind me for a long time, so quiet that I thought he had disappeared completely. I returned home and my daughter was there. She took my arm affectionately. "Mom, how are you going to distribute the money Dad left behind?" I put on comfortable slippers and poured myself a glass of milk. "What are you going to divide? When you got married, didn't we agree that after your dowry was given to you, your father and I would have the remaining assets for our retirement? But can you spend it all? Why don't you give me some money? I want to travel, buy bags, and live a more relaxed life." The daughter made no secret of her greed. "I'm only in my 50s now. Maybe I can live to 90, so I still have 30 more years to spend. How can I not spend them all?" "But you are an old lady. What do you need money for?" I said in a stern tone. "I will do whatever you want for money. Now that you are old, don't you deserve to think about yourself?" The daughter left angrily. When her daughter got married, the dowry she received was enough to buy a house. Moreover, both she and her son-in-law had stable jobs, so their lives were better than most. Perhaps in their eyes the elderly do not seem worthy of spending money on themselves or owning assets. Apart from the house we live in now, the joint property between Fin-shan and I only amounts to a few $100,000. Fin-shan's painting sold for a lot of money later. He suffered from many illnesses, both serious and minor, and spent a lot of his savings. Fin-shan stood behind me and looked at me resentfully. "Young people are under a lot of pressure. You should give them some subsidies." I was angry but also amused, so I asked him, "When you drafted the divorce agreement, why didn't you think of leaving the share for Theo-Ellen to our daughter?" Fin-shan turned his head away with an embarrassed look on his face. Then, as if realizing something, he was shocked and asked, "Can you see me?" I didn't answer, because Xie-lin sent another text message saying that he was about to leave and asked me when I would move to his mother's house. Before I could reply, Fin-shan said in a bad tone, "You're going to run outside again." "What's outside?" I glanced at him and said seriously, "Fin-shan, I am a widow now. Even if I am married now, it has nothing to do with you." Fin-shan, who used to go 3 days without talking to me, has become particularly talkative after becoming a soul. Fin-shan was stunned, then suddenly squatted down, holding his head with both hands, and said in a muffled voice, "Nova, I'm sorry. I don't know if he was apologizing to the younger me or the current me. None of this matters anymore. Human relationships are a dynamic process. I used to care about every little change in his emotions, but now I am indifferent to his joys and sorrows. Besides, he was willing to look back at me only because he saw Theoelena's true face and felt that he had been let down. But who cares? I moved to the home of Sharon's mother, a very learned old lady. She divorced at a very young age and raised Xieling alone. At the same time, she continued to enrich herself and truly kept learning throughout her life. When facing her, I couldn't help feeling a little inferior, because I didn't understand any of the topics she was talking about. She held my hand and said earnestly, "Auntie Zhang, my writing a book and your cooking a good meal are equally valuable to us, because we both do what we should do, and we both shine in our own areas of expertise." I was deeply moved and once again realized my own value. Before she died, Xeling's mother mentioned me in her book. This is a tough woman who does things meticulously. With her care in my later years, I eat well and sleep well, and I am very satisfied. Since then I have become an unmarketable nanny in the market. As I had just finished working for this company, I was quickly booked by the next one. There was even an employer who offered a raise and took me on an overseas trip just to get me. Used to be timid and always followed Finshin with my head down, but now I have finally straightened my chest and taken every step steadily. Someone chatted with me. "Old lady, you have such a good temperament and are always so confident. What did you do before?" I smiled slightly, extremely proud. "I am a gold medal nanny. Finshin hasn't appeared for a long time. Sometimes he is only around me for a short while in a month, and his presence is becoming less and less frequent." He sighed. "Nova, without me, you can be so free and unrestrained." Because the old house was going to be demolished, I had to take leave and go back. I asked someone to pack up the things I didn't need, and finally the only thing left in the study was the tulip painting. I'm considering whether to keep it. Finshin appeared again, looking at the painting with a sad face. "Nova, this painting I drew before I died was actually for you. In this life, I am grateful that you stayed by my side and never left me. Those unsaleable drafts were thrown into the trash can, and you picked them up one by one and kept them as treasures. You never thought of giving up on me, and you cherish me more than I do myself." Finshin looked at me, his eyes revealing rare affection and emotion. In the past he reserved such a look for Theoan. I said calmly, "I also want to say thank you. Thank you for deciding to divorce me, and not letting me live in confusion for the rest of my life." The affection on Finshan's face instantly disappeared and turned pale. His lips trembled as he tried to say something. "Nova, that painting is really for you. Please believe me. I can feel your dedication to our family and to me. It's just that my pride over the years has made me feel ashamed to bow down to you. I'm just used to you looking up to me. So the indifference and neglect I have faced for most of my life was actually due to this ridiculous reason." I smiled and felt calm. I no longer need his attention to me to determine the meaning of my existence. I took out the tulip painting and lit a fire amid Finshin's screams. Finshin tried to put out the flames with his hands, but it was no use just penetrating the flames. The flames engulfed the drawing paper and turned it into ashes in an instant. "Why, Nova, this is my last gift to you." Finshin roared in grief. "There's no reason. I feel that old things will hinder my steps towards a new life. There is no need for them to exist anymore." Finshin looked at me steadily, his eyes filled with disbelief, regret, and many complex emotions. Then he was horrified to find that his body was becoming lighter and lighter and suddenly disappeared. I breathed a sigh of relief. It turns out that his obsession was this painting. If he had known this, he would have destroyed it earlier. I pulled my suitcase and returned to my own world. When I was 70, I moved from housekeeping to in-house staff. I have a good reputation, and the domestic workers in training love to listen to my lectures. Although I can't do the work myself, I can teach more people. We don't have to feel inferior because we only know how to do laundry, cook and clean the household. This is also a unique job, and we are also creating value for society. Later I really couldn't work anymore, so I used the demolition compensation and my savings from work to travel to many places. Live a life of wealth and leisure. Finally I closed my eyes peacefully in bed. Before I died, I thought, since my 50s, my life has at least been brilliant. Although it's a little late, I have finally lived up to myself. Extra past and present life. On the day I died, I felt that I had no regrets in my life. Although I woke up very late, I had lived for myself for many years. Unexpectedly I opened my eyes again. This was 30 years ago. I looked at my black and dirty hands that had just carried 50 sacks of rice and walked towards home in the dark, feeling confused and relying on my memory. My daughter was sitting at the door playing in the mud and she was all dirty. Finchen was locking himself in a small room with a faint light coming from inside. Hearing that I came back, Finchen looked up at me with undisguised disgust in his eyes. The eyes and brows that once broke my heart would look at me with a hint of disdain and indifference for decades to come. He covered his nose and said, "Smells so bad. Go take a shower." "Oh, my mom has pooped her pants again. Go check. I want to drink some fish soup tonight. Don't put onions or garlic in it when you cook it." I stood there motionless, holding the little money I had earned. I was so tired that I couldn't even straighten my back. Finchen frowned. "Are you going to get mad again? Didn't I praise Theo for keeping in good shape yesterday? Look at him. You are the same age but you hunch your back all day long like an old lady. Stay away from me when you go out." Usually when I get to this point, I will go change my mother-in-law's clothes, go to the kitchen to cook, and then help my daughter with her homework. I will be busy until late at night before I can rest. Finchen would lock himself in a small room and would not come out. Everything around him seemed to have nothing to do with him. I didn't think it was a big deal before, but when I thought about living under such verbal suppression for half my life I got angry. I rushed to him, swept all the papers and pens on the table to the ground and tore into pieces all the drafts that I had carefully sorted out. The small room became a mess in an instant. I was still not satisfied, so under Finchen's surprised and angry gaze I stomped and stepped on the drawing with my feet, leaving dirty footprints. "Nova, are you crazy? Can you still live like this?" When I heard Finchen's voice did I calm down from my madness. I answered him, "Yes, this day is over." Finchen looked at me in shock, then laughed sarcastically. "Theo is already married. Why are you holding on to him? Don't be so dirty-minded and see everything as dirty." From the next room came the sound of my mother-in-law pounding the bed. Although she was paralyzed, her voice was still strong. "Country bumpkin, it's your blessing that my son marries you. Don't be shameless. This old lady whom I try my best to serve every day calls me a country bumpkin all the time. Finchen always says, 'My mother is ignorant. Don't bother with her.' I once asked him, 'If your mother called Theo like this, would you be angry?' Finchen turned his back and said no more. Silence is the best answer. I walked up to my mother-in-law and said, 'Okay, let others serve you from now on. A country bumpkin will not accompany you anymore.' My mother-in-law was so angry that she pounded the bed and kept calling me a cheap. I asked my mother-in-law, 'So if I am so cheap, then your son is willing to marry me. Is he more cheap? Or are you the cheap one who gave birth to him?' The room suddenly became quiet. Finchen looked at me with an accusing look. 'Nova, what are you talking about? Are you still going to live like this?' I packed my clothes and said, 'We can't live together. Let's get a divorce.' Finchen pulled the corner of his mouth and asked me sarcastically, 'Where can you go after divorce? In this era, if women are not doing well, most of them will endure it. Some of them take drugs or jump into the river when they can't stand it anymore. But almost no one files for divorce, so the divorce rate is very low. Should I continue to stay here and support your whole family? Let me, a person with only an elementary school education, support your whole family, and all the food and daily necessities are earned by a woman. Finchen, are you ashamed?' Finchen's face suddenly changed and he clenched his fists. I know him. Finchen is a man who cares a lot about his reputation. He can't stand any harsh words and gets angry if provoked. Sure enough, he slammed the door and took out some documents. Divorce. Divorce now. I glanced at my daughter standing in the corner and asked, 'Are you willing to go with Mom?' As expected, the daughter shook her head and said, 'Grandma said that Dad will be a painter in the future. I want to live a good life with Dad. Mom, you don't even have a place to live.' I sighed. That's all. An hour later I left the city with my simple luggage and divorce certificate. I went to a larger city when domestic service was not yet popular in small cities. I applied for a job at a housekeeping company while studying for the exam on my own. Influenced by Xieling's mother, I understand that in order to do anything well I must learn to plan. I am young, love to study and have quick hands and feet. Before long she became the gold medal nanny in the market. When I gained more experience and had some savings I opened my own housekeeping company. Some women who have little education and can only do laundry and cooking have to endure the cold eyes of their husbands and children at home. I recruited them all and after training they took up their respective positions. My job is to take care of the family, but I have no income and am looked down upon. Now they have their own income, are more confident and no longer have sad looks on their faces. Fin his family arranged several marriages for him. He is handsome and there are girls willing to marry him, but their married life is chaotic. A paralyzed mother, a young daughter, and a man who doesn't make any money. Pick any one of them and a family war could break out. The new wife was very tough. She drove Fin's mother to the countryside to fend for herself, and also drove Fin out to make money. Fin at least had a high school diploma and found a few clerical jobs, but he was used to being aloof and was bullied after working for a few days, so he simply quit. How can you, a grown man, stay at home? You can carry rice or sell vegetables. What can't you do? Fin was driven out by his new wife to do hard labor. After carrying rice for a whole day, his straight back began to hunch and he began to smell of sweat. He felt depressed and had no way to vent, so he went to talk to Theolin. As a result, both of them were scratched on the face by their new wives, which became a laughingstock in the local area. Sure enough, no matter what era, strong women can live well. I am ultimately worried about my daughter. I have to pay her tuition every year and can't do anything else. I just hope she can do better on her own. Fin continued to paint. Of course not. Busy with the demands of life, he no longer has the leisure to pick up a paintbrush. If you don't use the talents God has given you, he will take them back without hesitation. Many years later, I am in my 60s again. I am rich and have lots of free time. When I was visiting West Lake, I passed by an old man. His face seemed familiar, but he was originally taller than me, but because he was hunched over, he looked much shorter than me.